All right, welcome to Mornings in Corning. We have a special one this week. We're not actually in Corning. We are with Heather Maio. Heather, what do you do? Tell us about it.
Hi. So I started about 6-7 months ago. I started a podcast.
That's amazing. So again, I don't know many people around here that actually have started a podcast. What is it about?
A lot.
Okay, yeah.
In short, if I were to boil it down, so my passion is definitely, I mean, your viewers may or may not, my husband and I own New York's Born Fitness. And so my passion is in health, in wellness. So there's a big root in health and wellness, but not how you traditionally think about it. I like to think about more how we approach it, our mindset, the why behind things. And so really dig into a lot of topics that relate to health and wellness, but may not be health and wellness specific.
And for those of you that have long watched our channel, we used to have Jumpstart, or
right.
we still have it. I used to be part of it, and we would do a lot of the mind connection to the work too. So that's a big part of that. So I can't wait to get into that. And we're going to get into more and a lot coming up. So stay with us through 7 with more with Heather. All right, back here with Heather Maio, who started her own podcast. First of all, we didn't mention it last time. What's it called?
It's called Magic Mindset with Heather Maio.
There you go. Where can we find it, first of all?
It's on all the streaming platforms, so, you know, Apple, Spotify, Google+, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find it.
Perfect. Okay, I have my Apple Music, so I can get right on that podcast. So tell me a little bit about how you began this and why you started this.
Yeah, so you mentioned Jumpstart. I love talking about topics to do with health, wellness, nutrition. Anything really self-improvement is where my passion lies and where I find a lot of joy. But I'm trying to find the words for it. Not to say I became frustrated by constraints of, you know, only having 5-minute segments, but it's such a big topic. And so I wanted a platform where I could really dig into what we were talking about and to go a little deeper than what we could do in a short, you know, segment, or even, I also have a blog, but what you can do on, you know, 1,000 to 2,000 word blog posts. So it just basically gave me an opportunity to elaborate on topics I'm passionate about.
That's nice. So you Jumpstart, it's like 3 to 4 or 5 minutes.
Right.
So how long is a typical episode for you?
So I try to keep them between 20 to 30 minutes, but you know, I can get a little chatty. So some of them go about,
But 20 to 30 is actually very digestible.
I want it to be like a snack size so people can listen maybe on their way to and from work, especially in a town like Elmira. We're not traveling that far. And that's when I listen to my podcast, is when I'm running errands. And so I want people to be able to listen to it on their way to and from a grocery store, basically.
Well, perfect. All right, we're going to have more with Heather coming up on Mornings in Corning, the special edition this week. We're back here with Heather Maio, the brain behind Magic Mindset with Heather Maio. There we go. Okay, so we've been talking about your podcast this morning, and what do you want your viewers to get out of this podcast?
So change is something a lot of people aspire for. Again, my background is here at the gym, and so why do people come to the gym? Most of the time it's because they want to change something, they want to improve something. And so if there's anything I hope a listener gains from it, it's actionable items that can make their life just a little bit easier. Maybe they hear something and it's reframed in a different way that allows them to think about something differently, approach something differently, and you know, basically just make their lives easier.
There you go. Just like I just caught myself. I said viewer. It's supposed to be listener. Put into the news. Yeah, there you go. So that's good. Another thing I wanted to ask you is, what do you gain from this podcast? Because that's a big, important thing too. Because I'm sure it touches you in a way.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. So I also, you know, as a side, I do a lot of coaching with women, either in group settings or with one-on-one. And so, for me, it's really strengthening my coaching abilities because it puts me so deep into whatever topic I'm talking about that week. And so next week I'm going to be talking about judgment and jealousy, which is an unfortunate emotion that a lot of, you know, people deal with, but it doesn't need to be if we can learn to approach it from a different way, and we can learn to kind of ask ourselves questions. And so, you know, that's just one example, but it allows me to really dig in deep to these topics that I've seen, you know, through the last 10 years here and in my coaching practice come up time and time again with the women I'm lucky enough to work with.
Well, it's smart because I feel like we don't realize that jealousy is a very normal emotion. It's just
completely normal.
How to handle it.
Right, and when we can ask ourselves questions around that, we can learn so much about ourselves. Okay, well, what are you doing that I wish I could do?
Yes.
Well, how do you do it? And so it allows us not to compare ourselves, but to be inspired by the people around us. Instead of saying, oh, I could never do that. Look at them. They're so far ahead of me. It's the opposite way. It's, wow, they did that. That's available to me too. And so it's those little reframes. I mean, as you can see, I get really excited talking about this stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. We love passion. Exactly. The same with us. We have more with Heather coming up through 7. We're back here with Heather Maio, the, again, brain behind Magic Mindset with Heather Maio. That's a nice title that we have there. Pretty accurate. And so I want to kind of know, where do you gain your inspiration from your episodes?
All over the place. All over the place. And so absolutely what I see here in the gym, I'll be very honest with you, my own personal struggles, I was such a big self-sabotager for many years. I struggled with body image, with my weight, with, you know, tons of things. And so basically I like to joke with my listeners, like, let my failures be your lesson so you don't have to make the same things. And then of course, you know, I get questions from people, what I see in my coaching practice. I'm a self-help, I hate that term, but a self-discovery nerd. I'm a student of psychology, and so, you know, inspiration kind of falls into my lap.
I think it's a smart way too, just from my opinion, what it's worth, is that you say what you've been through, because that makes it more validating for the people that come to your podcast to listen.
And I think that's such a big thing is we, you know, specifically, I tend to say ladies, I think 99% of my listeners, last time I checked, are female, and that's just who I work with. But
I'm
this
the
is
1%.
just the one male. But it's such a human issue, but we tend to, with a lot of the things I talk about with, you know, body image stuff, on being unable to, you know, stay on a diet, which that's a whole other subject, or, you know, being unable to stop eating bad food or stick to a plan or change habits, all these things, we carry so much shame around them, but you realize once you start talking to people, we all do it. We're all the same. We all have the same flaws, you know, which aren't even flaws, mistakes or whatever. And so I want to normalize, like, look, like, it's a very normal thing that you're going through. You shouldn't carry shame over this. And then how can we flip it and change it?
Well, that's great. So, so I can't wait. We're going to get into more with Heather and her podcast coming up through 7, so stay with us. So Heather, I wanted to know a little bit about the reach of your podcast, because I know you started it in July, was it?
I think you're right.
Late
Yeah, it was over the summer.
I don't know how I pulled that out, but I think it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
I told you I was the 1%. I was listening. What has your reach been so far, just in the last half a year?
It's been pretty good, to be honest with you. I try not to look at it too much, because then my ego will come in and I'll say, oh, that's not good, or this episode did better than this one. But of course, I do look. And so I'm averaging anywhere between 200 to 500 downloads, which I'm really per episode. So I'm really happy with that. Yeah, I'm thrilled with that. And honestly, this sounds so tacky, but it's true. Even if it's one episode, one person, if they got something from it, I'm thrilled. And so that's why I try not to look, because I want to keep that energy of whatever. A lot of listeners are local, which is really cool. And then very random, I have like 40% of my listeners are in the Denver area, which I don't know why.
We love Denver. I love Denver.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Me too.
We love Patagonia.
So that's like the majority of my listeners. The other 20% are scattered. I have international, which is really cool, but it's like local to New York, and then
you popped up in Denver.
Denver.
I do all of Denver too.
Oh, cool. We'll go there.
All right, Heather, I wanted to ask you, this is very important, because this is kind of what I get in my field too, is response and feedback from people, and it touches my heart when someone reaches out to something positive. What about you with this podcast? Because you're reaching 200 to 500 downloads an episode. I'm sure you're getting people reaching out to you, and that they've helped in some way. What's been your favorite one so far?
I mean, again, it sounds silly, but it's true. I really can't pick a favorite one. There's been a lot who surprised me. I've had people reach out to me who I never would have thought, you know, people that I know personally, or I've connected with, just, you know, we're in a small town, and who I never would have thought would have listened. And so I've been surprised that they're listening, and, you know, to hear that it's something has been meaningful to them is just really, really cool. I've had people tell me that I've had them view their relationship with alcohol differently, and be able to make some changes there. And so that's really cool, because obviously that can really improve somebody's life. And the best is when I hear, I mean, again, they're all amazing, but when I hear somebody's able to just interact with themselves differently, to be kinder to themselves, to view themselves differently, that's why I'm doing this. And so that always feels really, really good when I have just a small part in that.
Well, you do, and I can tell you from experience, Chelsea and I always stop to talk to you. I know you're trying to work when you're at the gym. But Chelsea, I always try to talk to you.
Yeah.
Any tidbits that we can to make our lives a little better too.
I love this stuff, so we can always chat.
Exactly. All right, we'll stay with us. We're going to keep going with Heather coming up. All right, back here with Heather Maio, who has her own podcast. And I wanted to know a little bit about how you feel leading the way in this area for this type of work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's art in a different way. Like, we're all used to art. It's like painting, but this is like really mind and soul art that I look at it. So that's why I really wanted to have you on this.
Yeah, I love that you said that with my podcast and, you know, with writing, whether it be a blog or a book. I really do feel like, yes, it absolutely is art. And it is, you know, anytime somebody is using their voice to create something, absolutely, it's art. And so I love, you know, the theater kid in me, the girl who wanted to be a Broadway star. I love it.
Well, good.
Yeah.
And, no, you definitely, and even creating that space for someone to you know, heal themselves and work on themselves or better themselves. It's great. I wanted to kind of wrap this up and kind of pick your brain about the production of a podcast. 'Cause a lot of people don't know that, what it takes to go into making an episode, maybe how you format your show. Tell me a little about that.
Okay, so I'm probably the worst person you could ask, but I'm glad you asked it because my hope is somebody is watching right now who maybe wants to start their own, but they're nervous about the technical aspect.
Okay.
I wanted to start a podcast, no lie, for 2 years, but I didn't do it because I was so nervous about the technical aspect. I tell myself for the story that I'm not good at that stuff, which is a trash way to talk to yourself. I talk about that on the podcast. But basically, I just dove in and I just started and figured it out. And so I host my podcast on Anchor, which is just a hosting app. There's a ton of different hosting apps, and from there, they connect it to all the streaming platforms, which makes, you know, my job really easy because I only have to post it once. I did have some technical difficulties in the beginning, but we persisted and got through.
Perseverance.
Yeah, we did. And then editing wise, I just roll with it. And that's another big thing. The more you do this, and people say, well, I'm not comfortable speaking in public or something, the more you do it, the more comfortable you become. And the editing really isn't, trust me, if you want to do this, if I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out. Anybody can.
Also editing, you don't have to do much because, like you said, we're talkers.
Yeah.
We just have to roll the camera and we're good.
Or,
I guess at this point the
microphone, right, exactly.
So that's good. And tell us one more time where you can find it. It's on, you said all the streaming.
Yeah, it's on all streaming platforms. If you just search Magic Mindset with Heather Maio, it will pop right up. Or if you go to my website, just heathermaio.com, you'll see my blog there. You know, if you want to have an idea for me to talk about, I'd love to hear it. You can submit that there too. And all the links to the podcast are there as well.
Well, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy we got to talk because I've been trying to lock this down, so I'm glad we could.
I love it.
All right, well, thank you. And everyone has a great weekend. Happy Friday, and thanks again, Heather.
See ya.